We here at the church were privileged earlier this week to be a host to a large Amish family. Now, talking about two men who are Amish ministers, their sons, their daughter-in-laws, a bunch of children, their wives, all together there was 14 of them. And how this all came about was Ethan Heinocke, one of our young men. He was way out by the highway at the Thornton's gas station, and he was getting his wife a milkshake from Steak and Shake. It was a little bit later in the evening, and he was just going to go home and surprise her with her favorite milkshake. And he drove by and he saw this group of Amish people with all their luggage just standing outside Thornton's gas station. And it was obvious that they had had a major breakdown of the vehicle. And he drove by, and the further he drove home, the more the Spirit started convicting him that he needs to get involved. He needs to make sure they're okay. He needs to ask if they need any help. And I love that he did this, because all of us have been there before. You know, we've driven by somebody on the side of the road, and it's happened so fast, and then we convince ourselves it's too late to turn around. And he didn't do that. He went home, he delivered the milkshake, he took it to his wife, and he said, listen, I can't explain. Here, there's some Amish people who need me. And he just turned around and walked out. And she's like, what? And so he came all the way back to Thornton's, introduced himself, and he asked, is there anything I can do to help? They told him the story of the breakdown of their vehicle. And he said, you know what, just give me a minute. And he got on the phone. First thing he did, he called Zach. And he told Zach, our student minister, this whole story. And Zach's like, wait, what? Amish people? And, is this a joke? He wasn't sure if it was a joke. Ethan's like, no, it's no joke. He goes, we need to do something. We need to do something. And so Zach's like, all right. He goes, I'll call Ron. And because after all, Ron Otto is the resident Amishman here in Lincoln. And so talk about another God moment. I mean, it was a God moment that Ethan was out there, because the whole milkshake thing for his wife, he hasn't done it in a long, long time. And my phone, I was already in bed. My phone was out in the living room, and it was on silence. And my wife just happened to be walking past it when it lit up and buzzed with Zach's name. And she came in and she said, Zach is trying to reach you. Do you want to take this? And I said, yes, I want to take it. So I'm talking to Zach, and now he's telling me about Amishmen out by the highway, and I'm like, is this a joke? No. And I said, all right. And he told me the whole story, and I said, you know what? A lot of small children, they have to wait for 4 hours for a ride to come for them. I said, that is not a good place for small children this late at night. I said, let's bring them back here. I said, you go to the church and get the church van, and I'm making my way there. And so Ethan had the privilege of being able to say to these people, my church is coming. My church is coming. Well, we showed up. I walked in. If you're new here today, I had Amish grandparents, and so I don't know a lot of Pennsylvania Dutch, just a few greetings is all I know. And I walked in and I did one of those traditional greetings with the Amish. Wie bist du is what I said, Wie bist du, which is how are we doing? And the ministers both big smiles, and they started talking in Pennsylvania Dutch, and I changed it to English as quickly as I could. And we said, we're going to help you. You're not, Thornton's was kind, don't get me wrong, but they told them they could stay back in this little trucker's cafe area. It's real tiny, and they were lined up sitting on their luggage and small children. And I said, if you're willing, you can wait at our church for your ride, because the ride was already en route. And so we brought them back here to the church. Ethan went to the pizza shop and bought a bunch of pizzas, and we got bottled waters, and we set up tables, and we fed them and made sure they were comfortable. And then we left. I told them, I said, we trust you, and you're free to use this place as much as you want. And I want to pray for your travels, but we're just going to leave you tonight. And I left my number. If you have any needs, you just call this number. I'll come right back. And that's how it went down. They thanked us. We prayed for him. You would have been really proud of Ethan that night. He did the right thing, and he got involved. And I tell you this story for this reason, a couple things. The these were people who were in a storm of life. If you've ever been broken down before, you know what a storm that can be. And they were handling it amazing. They were smiling, and there was laughter, and there was joy. And even though this was a little bit of a frustration, they didn't even show it. They were just like, hey, whatever God wants. And then later that night, they even said, Ethan is our angel. I said, you don't know him like we know. No, I'm just joking. They're like, he's our angel tonight. And they handled that storm so well. And Ethan had the ability to say, my church is on the way. The disciples are in a storm today. And Jesus is on his way in the most miraculous of ways. He's going to walk on the water. Now, you need to be really careful today, especially all of you who have been in church a long time, because you're so familiar with the story of Jesus walking on the water. Some of you could get up here and teach it right now, and it doesn't amaze you anymore. There's always a threat in getting into a passage that we love, but that we're too familiar with it, and we have a tendency to just go, oh, that's Jesus. Yeah, he can walk on water, no big deal. And instead of letting that phrase really sink into our minds, Jesus walked on water. And to allow yourself to get re-amazed with that. I'm not trying to be rude this morning, but I want to be clear. Out of all the religions of the world, only one religious founder could walk on water. Buddha couldn't walk on water. Confucius never walked on water. Moses never walked on water. Krishna never walked on water. Muhammad never walked on water. Joseph Smith never walked on water. Charles Russell never walked on water, etc., etc., etc. And I know some of you right now are thinking, well, Peter walked on water for a very short time and then failed. Only one ever did it successfully, and his name is Jesus, period. And you and I'm just wondering if you and I can get re-amazed today with who he is. John does something really unique with this story. He does not do everything that the other gospel accounts do with this story. Matthew tells this story. Mark tells this story. Luke doesn't even tell the story at all. And John does not go as far in the story as others. What is John trying to teach us? What does John want us to see? That's where we're going to be going today. Today's passage, the disciples are on the Sea of Galilee. At first, they're without Jesus. Jesus will come out to them, but they find themselves in a severe storm. Now, the Sea of Galilee is 1,000 feet, approximately 1,000 feet below sea level. It's surrounded by all these mountains, which are 2,000 feet above sea level. And so that 3,000-foot difference creates a dynamic in that area where the winds can shift and come through that valley and create a storm without warning, sailing across the Sea of Galilee, which is about 7 miles, and in the middle of that sea, on a beautiful day, suddenly have your whole life turned upside down. And this is a metaphor for storms in our life. And you know this, that you could just be everything could be sailing so well, and all of a sudden, just like that, without warning, you are in a storm. What does Jesus want of us in the storms? We're in chapter 6, starting in verse 16. When evening came, Jesus decided where they got into a boat. They set off across the lake of Capernaum. By now, it was dark, and Jesus had not yet joined them. We learn in one of the other accounts that Jesus made them get into the boat and take off without him. He made them sail out into the storm. Does that bother you? It can shake some people. Wait a minute, Jesus sent his followers into a storm? Where do storms come from? Spiritual storms or life storms, where do they come from? Satan causes a lot of storms, that's true. Our bad decisions in life can cause us a lot of storms, that's true. But sometimes God sends us into a storm because there's something he's doing. It may not always be about you. It might be about somebody else he's trying to work through a storm, or you might be in a storm because he's got some plan that you're unaware of yet that could just be mind-boggling when you hear it. He sends them into this storm. Later on, when Jesus ascends into heaven, he'll send his disciples into another storm too, a storm of persecution. How do you explain that? I've had unbelievers tell me, why do you follow Jesus when he doesn't protect you from any storms? Well, storms come to everybody, regardless of your faith or lack of it. Everyone goes through a storm. It's Jesus who holds me fast through the storms. He holds me secure. Verse 18, a strong wind was blowing and the waters grew rough. When they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, so they're only about halfway out, they saw Jesus approaching the boat, walking on the water, and they were frightened. That's an understatement. You better believe they were frightened. At first they thought they saw a ghost, and then they realized it's Jesus. There's this big shock. Verse 20, but Jesus said to them, "It is I, don't be afraid." Then they were willing to take him into the boat, and immediately the boat reached the shore where they were heading. Wow, is that a double miracle? Jesus walking on the water, and then all of a sudden, the minute they allow him into their boat, they're immediately at the shoreline. I mean, talk about beam me up, Scotty. Boom, just like that, they're there. It's a double miracle. That's all the details John gives us, which begs a question, why? We know there's more to this story. Wait a minute, there's this whole encounter with Peter walking on. In John's account, it doesn't even merit mention. All John wants you to know is that Jesus came to his followers in the middle of a storm. Oh, I've preached the other sermons. Oh, Peter, he took his eyes off Jesus. Don't take your eyes off Jesus in the midst of your storm. It preaches well. But this year, this time, it's just Jesus and a storm and his disciples, and he does everything he can to make his way to them. And when he arrives, they take him into the boat, which is the best thing they could have possibly done. There's still some of you here, you haven't asked Jesus into your life. You haven't invited Jesus into your storm, into your situation, and you need to do that. But John doesn't give us other details. John doesn't mention Peter joined Jesus and walked on the water for a while. John doesn't show us the intensity of the storm. The other disciples or the other writings do. John doesn't mention that Jesus was about to walk past the boat. We'll come back to that in a minute because that's important. John doesn't mention that they rowed all night long, that it was in the 4th watch of the night. If you spend time on the ocean or sea, there were watches all night long, so somebody always had to stay awake. The first watch was from 6 to 9 in the evening. The second watch was from 9 to 12. The third watch was from 12 to 3. And the last watch, the 4th watch of the night, was from 3 till 6 in the morning. So sometime around 4 in the morning. They left at dusk. They've been rowing and fighting the storm all night long. What does that mean for you and I? Jesus comes in our storms, but you don't know when he's going to come. Well, I encourage you in the middle of your storm to look over your shoulder. He's making his way to you, but you don't know if he's going to come in the 1st watch of the night or the 4th watch of the night. All you and I have is the promise that he is making his way to us, and we have to believe that. Gales come to each, being tossed up on the rocks, threaten us all. We all at some point are going to sail straight into a tempest, and some of those storms that you and I are going to be in are going to have a severe punch. Jesus said, in this world you will have trouble. In this world you're going to have trouble. He was right about that. But take courage, for I have overcome the world, Jesus said. It's my faith that helps me through these times. What's that part about Jesus walking by? One of the other accounts that Jesus was walking by the boat. And the disciples thought they saw a ghost, and then they cried out to him, "Lord, is it you?" And then Jesus stopped and turned. That's an Old Testament strong connection. It's meant to tie us to the Old Testament, by the way. God walked past. Oh, it happened a few times in the Old Testament. One of the really good times was in Exodus. Moses was saying, "Can I see your face, God?" And God said, "You can't see my face. I will pass by, but there's going to be a little distance here. I'll be close, but I'm not coming all the way to you." and God passed by Moses, and Moses got to see the back of God. And even that was enough to alter his appearance. God, a very holy being, mankind, sinful, God got close, but he didn't come all the way in. In the life of Elijah, the same thing happens. Elijah sees God pass by, but there's a little distance here. So there's a strong connection here. Here's Jesus being just like his heavenly Father. He's going to walk by, pass by. But it's the cry of his disciples that Jesus does something totally different. He stops, he turns, and he comes to his disciples, and he gets right into the storm with them. And that will be Jesus' attribute from the beginning. The angels will sing, it's God with us now. God comes all the way with us. God came down to be with us. That's who Jesus is. Oh, there's another Old Testament reference. I didn't give it to you this morning, but if you want to look it up, it's in Job 9. Job says of God, he says, only you can walk on the water. Only you tread on the depths of the sea. Just you. Only God can do that. I didn't know that passage was there until this week. If this is something, walking on water, that only God can do, and Jesus is doing it, then who is Jesus? Oh. This is beautiful. We need to know these things. At one point or another in our lives, the skies, they're going to darken. The winds are going to rage. You're going to find yourself in a modern day version of a Galilean typhoon. What are you going to do then? Everyone in this room, you're either coming out of a storm, you're in the middle of a storm right now, or you're about to enter one. What are you going to do when the storms come? I suggest you cling to Jesus Christ. I suggest you invite him into your boat. I suggest that you look for the unimaginable, that Jesus is coming toward you in the middle of your storms. Just look over your shoulder. He's coming. There's this concept of holding fast that Lauren talked about a few weeks ago. He taught us this new song. We're going to sing it today. I am passionately in love with this new song about how God holds us fast. But that idea of hold fast is an old nautical term. In fact, I was really introduced to it in my favorite movie, which is Master and Commander, starring Russell Crowe. Oh, my goodness. I'm just going to, all right, hey, this is a man movie, all right? It's a man movie. And when I watch it, it's like I'm going to go sail the seas now. It's just, there's only one woman in the whole movie. She's a native girl, and she just smiles. She has no speaking parts. It is just man stuff, all right? And every time I come across it when I'm flipping through the channels, it doesn't matter where I'm at in the movie. If I hit that thing, we're going to stop and watch it for a while, which just thrills Bonnie to watch it that often. It's one of my favorite movies, and he's in the midst of a storm at the beginning of it. You can hear the captain yelling, hold fast, hold fast. Sailors of old, it meant something really important to them. It was a spiritual thing. It meant that God holds us fast in the storm, but it was also an encouragement for them to hold fast to the boat. Old sailors had this idea that you would commit one hand to the boat and then one hand to the crew. You take your strongest hand and you would hold fast to a rope or hold fast to the rigging, and then one hand to help others. And in fact, they were so committed to it, many of the old sailors tattooed hold fast to their knuckles. In the movie, there's a close-up of one of those old sea dogs, and it shows his hand. In fact, it shows his hand twice. One is in the midst of the storm, and he is just holding on to the rigging as tight as he can. It says hold fast across his knuckles. That's what that song is all about. God holds us fast. But this morning, when you go into a storm, it's important that you hold fast to Jesus Christ, and he holds fast to you. He doesn't keep storms out of your life. You're going to have storms. But you have a way through the storms. Listen to me as I close this out. Jesus did not invite us to come sail with me and you'll never have a storm. That's not what Jesus said. Jesus did say, come sail with me, and I will take you through the storms, and I will get you to your desired harbor. And so we hold fast to him, and God holds fast to us. I'm going to ask you to read Psalm 139 with me this morning, but I want you to get this idea. Inside this psalm, it's almost, you can almost feel like you're in a tempest. You rise up and you go down. And then the next verse, you rise up and then you go down. It has this feel of this angry sea. And then you get to the end of Psalm 139 and you discover that through all of that, God has been holding you fast. I want you to read this out loud with me now. Let's start. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on
wings of the dawn, I settle on the far side of the sea. Even there, your hand will guide me. Your right hand will hold me fast.